You've probably heard it 1,000 times. Vaccines cause autism. It's on social media, in group chats, even in casual conversations. But is it actually true? Or is it one of the most dangerous myths of our time? Today we're digging into the science, the history, and the fear behind it. We'll show you where this myth came from, why so many people still believe it, and what decades of real research actually found. By the end, you'll know, myth or reality. Let's find out. Our story starts in 1998. A British doctor named Andrew Wakefield published a study in a respected medical journal. His claim was explosive. He said the MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella, was linked to autism. The media exploded with the story. Newspapers ran front-page warnings. Parents panicked. Vaccination rates began to drop. In the UK, MMR vaccination rates fell dramatically, and diseases that were nearly gone started coming back. Measles outbreaks returned to communities that had been protected for decades. But here's where it gets interesting. Almost immediately, other scientists tried to repeat his findings, and they couldn't. Then, investigative journalists started digging into Wakefield's methods. What they found was troubling. Wakefield had been paid by lawyers who were suing vaccine makers. His study only looked at 12 children. No control group. Investigators found the data itself had been manipulated. In 2010, the study was formally retracted. Wakefield lost his medical license. The British Medical Journal later called it an elaborate fraud. But by then, the myth had already spread too far to stop. Word of mouth, fear, and the internet did the rest. The claim passed from person to person, growing with each retelling. Public figures picked up the story and gave it a bigger stage. Social media algorithms rewarded fear because fear gets clicks. One flawed study in one journal in 1998 lit a fuse that's still burning today. The myth spread far beyond the UK to the US, Europe, and beyond. Almost 3 decades later, we're still dealing with the fallout. So why, even after all this, do so many people still believe it? Let's look at the arguments. Let's be fair, this myth didn't survive by accident. Autism symptoms often become noticeable around the same age children get the MMR vaccine. So naturally, some parents connect the two events in time. One followed the other, so it feels like cause and effect. Autism is complex, and even today, scientists don't have one single simple answer for its cause. That uncertainty creates space for fear, and fear looks for something to blame. When science can't yet fully explain something, people fill the gap themselves. And once a claim goes viral, repetition alone makes it feel true. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. Hearing something often enough makes it feel factual. Online groups create echo chambers where the same claims get repeated and reinforced. For any parent, protecting their child is instinct number one. So the idea of injecting anything into a baby can feel scary, even before any science is considered. There's also historic distrust of pharmaceutical companies and institutions. Past scandals involving corporations cutting corners haven't helped public trust. Some people are skeptical of any official health guidance by default. Late-night internet searches often lead straight into fear-based content because that's what platforms promote. Algorithms are built to maximize attention, and fear captures attention extremely well. For parents of autistic children, there's also a deeply human search for a reason why. A cause, any cause, can feel better than no explanation at all. Support communities have formed around this belief, offering comfort and solidarity. Passionate public advocates have amplified these personal stories to huge audiences. A single emotional story often feels far more convincing than a page of statistics. Our brains are wired for stories, not spreadsheets. For years, media coverage often presented both sides as equally valid, even when the evidence wasn't equal. This false balance made a debunked claim look like an open scientific debate. Some parents feel dismissed by the medical system, which pushes them toward alternative explanations. Short appointment times can leave real questions unanswered. So parents turn to the internet, where misinformation is often louder than nuance. Some documentaries and books have presented the myth with dramatic, persuasive production value. Once people commit to a belief, they tend to defend it. That's basic human psychology. The topic became identity. You're either pro-science or pro-parent, which isn't actually a real divide. Politicians and influencers have sometimes used the topic for attention or influence. All of this combined created a wave that real science has had to swim against for decades. Fear, timing, distrust, and human psychology. That's the real recipe behind this myth. Now let's put actual science on the other side of that scale. Here's what decades of real research actually show. In 2002, Danish researchers studied over 500,000 children. They compared vaccinated and unvaccinated children directly. The autism rate was virtually identical in both groups. No link found at all. In 2019, an even larger Danish study looked at over 650,000 children. It's one of the largest vaccine safety studies ever conducted. Same result. No increased risk of autism from the MMR vaccine. And it's not just these two studies. Researchers across multiple countries have studied millions of children combined. More than 20 major studies, millions of children, zero credible link. Remember, the original 1998 study wasn't just wrong, it was proven fraudulent. 10 of Wakefield's own co-authors later retracted their names from the paper. A claim built on 12 children with no control group could never prove anything scientifically. Compare that to over 500,000 children in the real studies. What about thimerosal, the mercury-based preservative some vaccines used to contain? It was removed from most childhood vaccines in the United States starting in 1999 to 2001 out of caution. If thimerosal caused autism, removing it should have lowered autism rates. Instead, autism diagnoses kept rising at the same pace or even faster. That's because a growing body of evidence points to autism's roots forming very early, even before birth. Genetics play a major role, with researchers identifying hundreds of related gene variations. Studies of twins and families show strong hereditary patterns. Some brain imaging studies suggest developmental differences appear before a child ever receives the MMR vaccine. In short, autism appears to be a complex mix of genetic and early developmental factors, not a single trigger. Every major health and science organization has reviewed this evidence independently. National and global health authorities worldwide have all reached the same conclusion. Vaccines do not cause autism, full stop. This conclusion hasn't changed in over 25 years of continued research. Now let's talk about what happens when vaccination rates actually drop. After the MMR scare, measles cases surged across the UK and parts of Europe. Thousands of children got sick from a disease that was nearly eliminated. Tragically, some children died from complications that a vaccine could have prevented. Even in recent years, US communities with low vaccination rates have seen measles outbreaks return. Vaccines don't just protect the vaccinated, they protect infants and immunocompromised people who can't be vaccinated at all. When enough people opt out, that protective chain breaks and everyone becomes more vulnerable. Public health isn't just personal, it's collective. Every vaccine ingredient and safety profile is continuously monitored, even after approval. Global surveillance systems track side effects in real time across millions of doses. Like any medical product, vaccines can have minor side effects, but serious ones are extremely rare. The risk of serious complications from the diseases themselves is far higher than any vaccine risk. Science doesn't hide from scrutiny, it invites it. That's the whole point of ongoing research. Thousands of independent scientists in dozens of countries have had every opportunity to find a link. None of them found one. At this point, it's considered one of the most thoroughly disproven claims in modern medicine. So if you've ever felt that fear, you're not alone, and now you have real answers. Talking to a trusted pediatrician remains the best way to get personalized answers. Vaccination programs are credited with saving millions of lives every single year. Diseases like smallpox have been completely eradicated thanks to vaccines. Polio, once a childhood nightmare, is now on the verge of global elimination. The difference vaccines have made in child health is almost impossible to overstate. Every major review keeps arriving at the same evidence-based conclusion. The myth's origin has crumbled under investigation. The science supporting vaccine safety has only grown stronger. When you put belief on one side and evidence on the other, the scale doesn't even come close. So after all that, where does this leave us? Let's deliver the verdict. It's time. Myth or reality? The verdict is clear. Myth. Vaccines do not cause autism. This has been proven again and again and again. From a single fraudulent study in 1998 to over 2 decades of massive, credible research, the evidence hasn't just leaned one way, it's overwhelming. The man behind the myth lost his license and his credibility. Millions of children studied, no link found. This conclusion holds true across every country that has studied it. If you've ever worried about this, you can let that fear go. Trust your pediatrician. Trust the data. It's on your side. Vaccines remain one of the safest, most studied medical tools in human history. They protect not just individuals, but entire communities. And they've helped push once deadly diseases to the edge of extinction. So let's be absolutely clear one more time. Vaccines causing autism? Myth. Fully scientifically, historically busted. And that fear so many of us absorbed over the years, it was built on fraud, not fact. The real science has always been there, clear, consistent, and repeated for 25 plus years. Knowing the truth doesn't just inform you, it protects the people you love. And that's exactly what good science is supposed to do. Myth. Busted. But we're not done yet because there's one twist you need to hear. Here's the twist almost nobody talks about. While Wakefield was attacking the MMR vaccine, he had already filed a patent for his own separate single measles vaccine. If parents abandoned the combined MMR vaccine out of fear, his alternative stood to profit. In other words, the panic he created had a very personal financial upside for him. This conflict of interest was never disclosed to the journal or the public. It only came to light years later through investigative journalism, which makes the fraud even more deliberate than most people realize. And yet, even fully debunked, myths like this rarely disappear completely. They live on in group chats, comment sections, and late-night searches. That's why myths like this need to be retold, corrected, and re-explained again and again. Not to shame anyone for once believing it, but to protect the people who still do. Because good information, shared calmly, is still the best cure for fear. Millions of children, decades of research, zero credible link. One fraudulent study can start a fire, but real evidence can put it out. So the next time you hear this claim, you'll know exactly where it came from and why it's false. That's the truth behind one of the biggest medical myths of our generation. Myth or reality, now you know the answer. If this helped clear things up, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and stay curious. Because the truth is always worth digging for. See you in the next one.